This time next year, who will be living in number 10? Rishi Sunak or Sir Keir Starmer? After 13 years of the Tories, is it finally time for a change? We don't have a crystal ball, of course, but we do know that there will be a general election next year. The Conservatives could have dragged it out till the end of January 2025. But last week the Prime Minister ruled that out. Rishi Sunak thought he could turn the government's fortunes around, but the Conservatives are still languishing 20 points behind Labour in the polls. Here's pollster Joe Twyman.
Rishi Sunak is behind Keir Starmer, and by some distance when it comes to the question of who is the better leader. And crucially, when it comes to the question of which party is best to deal with the economy, the most important issue going into the election next year, we see that Labour have held a lead of around about sort of 10 to 15 points now, consistently for months and months.
Sir Keir Starmer says Labour are ready.
We are ready for a general election. I've had my whole team on a general election footing for some time now. I think that given the complete state of failure now in the country, there's a real sense that everything is broken, nothing is working, that the sooner that election comes, the better.
Plenty of Conservative MPs think the next election is already lost. But former Justice Secretary Sir Robert Buckland is more hopeful.
I think that things will narrow. I think people will start increasingly to ask questions of this Labour opposition and realise that, like the Emperor, they have no clothes. They're not ready for government. They're not fit for government. If the Prime Minister and the Chancellor carry on in the right track, reducing inflation, dealing with the cost of living, helping to grow our economy, then I think the British public will say we want more of that, please.
And despite the polls, Joe Twyman says Labour face a huge task to win.
They need to gain 124 seats, it's estimated, at the next election in order to get a majority of just 2. The only person who's ever achieved larger gains than that was Tony Blair in 1997.
So when are we likely to go to the polls? May or next autumn?
So I think that the most likely option is probably October or November time, perhaps late November, so as not to clash with the US presidential election at the start of that month. But we can't rule out May either. Ultimately, we don't know, neither does Rishi Sunak.
The USA will elect its next president on November the 5th. Whether that's Biden, Trump or someone else, we'll look sedate in comparison. But what issues will dominate the election here? Immigration, legal and illegal, the NHS, crime? Here's Twyman again.
And it's rare that simply one subject dominates the election. But if you ask people what's the most important issue facing them and their family, or indeed what's the most important issue facing the country, the cost of living comes top and by some distance.
Rishi Sunak hopes that with inflation down and tax cuts coming, people will start to feel better off next year. He hopes too for flights to Rwanda. We don't know what 2024 will bring, but we do know that on one day, we, the British public, will get to choose who runs the country. Katherine, Forster, GB News.